The entire plane fell silent as Mark slowly rose from his seat, his eyes glistening with tears that refused to fall. The woman who had been snickering moments before now stared up at him, her laughter dying on her lips. What happened next changed everyone on that flight forever. If you're moved by stories of courage, resilience, and unexpected kindness, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more content that touches the heart and nourishes the soul. Mark Jenkins clutched his daughter Emma's small hand as the plane jolted violently. At 5 years old, Emma had never experienced turbulence before, and her wide blue eyes, so much like her mother's, filled with tears as another shudder rocked the aircraft. "It's okay, sweetheart," Mark whispered, trying to keep his voice steady despite his own anxiety. Flying had never been his favorite activity, but since becoming a single father 2 years ago, he'd learned to push aside his own fears to be strong for his daughter. Emma's bottom lip trembled as she clutched her worn stuffed rabbit closer. "Daddy, I'm scared," she whimpered just as another violent shake sent a ripple of gasps through the cabin. "I know, baby. But it's just like driving over bumpy roads," Mark said, fumbling with the seatbelt that seemed too large for Emma's tiny frame. "The pilot knows what he's doing." From across the aisle, Mark heard a distinct snort. He glanced up to meet the gaze of a well-dressed woman in her 40s, her expression a mixture of amusement and disdain. "Some people shouldn't travel with children if they can't handle simple turbulence," she remarked loudly to her companion. "Especially if they don't know how to properly secure a child's seatbelt." Mark felt heat rise to his cheeks. He was trying his best, had been trying his best every single day since Sarah's car accident had left him to raise their daughter alone. Every day was a new lesson in inadequacy, a new opportunity to feel like he was failing at the most important job he'd ever have. Emma began to cry harder, her small body trembling against his side. The plane dropped suddenly, and several passengers gasped. The "Fasten Seatbelt" sign dinged insistently overhead. "Look at him," the woman continued, clearly enjoying her audience as several nearby passengers glanced their way. "No idea what he's doing. The child should be with her mother." Something inside Mark snapped. Not with anger, but with a quiet resolve that had been building since the day he became both mother and father to Emma. Slowly, he stood up. The flight attendant rushing down the aisle paused. "Sir, please remain seated during." "Just one moment," Mark said softly. "I need to address something." The entire cabin seemed to hold its breath as Mark turned to face the woman who had been mocking him. But instead of the confrontation everyone expected, he spoke with a gentle dignity that filled the cramped airplane cabin. "2 years ago," he began, his voice steady despite the plane's continued rocking, "my wife was driving home from work when a drunk driver crossed the median. Emma was 2 years old when her mother died. Since then, I've been trying to be both parents to her." The woman's smug expression faltered. "Today is Emma's first flight. We're going to see her grandmother, who has terminal cancer and might not make it to Christmas. I'm terrified of flying myself, but I'm here because sometimes being a parent means doing the scary things anyway." Mark took a deep breath. "I don't know if you're a mother, ma'am, but if you are, I hope you never have to learn what it's like to see your child cry for someone who can never come back. I hope you never have to figure out how to braid hair or buy the right size clothes or explain why mommy isn't coming home, all while trying not to break down yourself." The plane jolted again, but now it seemed no one noticed. Even Emma had stopped crying, looking up at her father with a mixture of awe and love. "I may not know how to perfectly adjust an airplane seatbelt on the first try, but I do know that kindness costs nothing. And right now, that's something my daughter needs to see more than anything else." The silence that followed was broken by a gentle male voice from 2 rows back. "My wife and I have 3 kids. Let me help you with that seatbelt." A middle-aged man approached, kneeling beside Emma with a warm smile. "Hi there. I'm John. Is this your bunny? He looks very brave." Emma nodded shyly. "His name is Hoppy." "Well, Hoppy is doing a great job keeping you safe. Let's make sure your seatbelt is helping too. As John adjusted Emma's seatbelt, a flight attendant appeared with a small cup of apple juice and a pair of plastic wings. For our special passenger, she said with a wink to Emma. Across the aisle, the woman who had laughed stared down at her hands, her cheeks flushed with shame. The turbulence continued, but something in the cabin had shifted. An elderly couple passed Mark a packet of cookies for Emma. A teenager offered her colorful markers and paper. A businessman who'd been typing furiously on his laptop closed it and began sharing stories about his own children. By the time the "Fasten Seatbelt" sign finally turned off, Emma was giggling as she drew pictures for her new airplane friends. Mark sank back into his seat, emotionally drained but somehow lighter than he'd felt in months. As the flight continued, the woman across the aisle caught Mark's eye. Her expression had softened completely. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "My sister died last year, and my nephew." She trailed off. "I've been angry at the world. It was unfair to take it out on you and your daughter." Mark nodded. "Grief makes us do strange things. Your wife would be proud of you," she said. "Of both of you." For the remainder of the flight, passengers who had been strangers hours before shared stories, offered help, and formed connections that transcended the temporary discomfort of turbulence. When the plane finally began its descent, Emma was asleep against Mark's shoulder, Hoppy clutched tightly in her arms. As passengers prepared to disembark, the flight attendant who had brought Emma juice earlier approached Mark. "I've been flying this route for 15 years, she said quietly. "I've never seen a cabin full of strangers become a community like this. Your daughter is lucky to have you." Mark smiled as he gently woke Emma. "I'm the lucky one," he said. They were the last to leave the plane. As they walked through the terminal, Mark was surprised to see several passengers from their flight waiting. John, the father who had helped with Emma's seatbelt, stepped forward with his wife. "We live nearby," he explained. "If you need anything during your visit, a home-cooked meal, a playdate for Emma, anything, please call us." He pressed a business card into Mark's hand. Others approached with similar offers, restaurant recommendations, phone numbers, even an invitation to a children's birthday party that weekend. The woman who had laughed hung back, but as Mark passed, she pressed something into his hand, a gift card to a local toy store. "For Emma," she said simply. "And thank you." "For what?" Mark asked. "For reminding me who I want to be." That night, after Mark had tucked Emma into bed in his mother-in-law's guest room, he sat on the porch swing that had been Sarah's favorite spot. The stars above seemed brighter somehow, and for the first time in 2 years, the weight of solo parenting didn't feel quite so crushing. He thought about the strangers on the plane who had become, for a brief time, a kind of family. He thought about how his moment of vulnerability, of standing up not in anger but in truth, had somehow created a space for healing that extended beyond just him and Emma. His mother-in-law joined him on the porch, her frail hand covering his. "Sarah always said you were the strongest person she knew," she said. "Not because you never struggled, but because you always found a way through." Mark squeezed her hand. "I'm just trying to be the father Emma deserves." "You already are," she replied. "And more than that, you're teaching her the most important lesson of all, that even in our darkest moments, we're never truly alone." Inside, Emma slept peacefully, her dreams untroubled by turbulence. And Mark, for the first time in a long while, felt something like hope taking root alongside his grief, not replacing it, but growing alongside it, equally real and equally powerful. Sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is simply stand up and tell our truth. In doing so, we open the door not only to our own healing but to the creation of community in the most unexpected places, even at 30,000 feet, in the midst of turbulence, surrounded by strangers who are only strangers until we share our stories. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that remind us of our shared humanity and the courage it takes to face each day with love, even when, especially when, the journey gets bumpy.